So today we are going to discuss about some some abnormalities related to development and behavior. So first, look at the developmental abnormalities. Okay. So first one is the developmental disorders, and later we will discuss the behavior or behavioral disorders. So what are the disorders that occurs in the development? Okay, so development, there are three types of the developmental disorders. First one is the developmental delay. What is that? Developmental delay. Developmental, keep in mind. Next one is the developmental dissociation. Developmental dissociation. And third one is the developmental deviancy. Developmental deviancy. So these are three disorders of the development: delay, dissociation, deviancy. Developmental delay, developmental dissociation, and developmental deviancy. Okay, so we can call it this developmental disorder have the three D's. Three D's mean have three D's. One D for developmental delay, other D for dissociation, and other D for the deviancy. So let's discuss one by one. What is the delay, what is the dissociation, and what is the deviancy? So first look at the delay or the developmental delay. Developmental delay mean when child's performance in one or more domain is significantly below the average. So child performance in one or more domain is significantly low or below the average. Below average. We can call it behind what we are expecting. Behind what we are expecting. This is known as developmental delay. It means child performance of the child in one or more domains. One or more domains mean maybe the grass, motor, fine motor, social, behavior, visual, hearing, any domain. So if the age of the baby of age of the child is 3 months, still that child is not holding the neck. So it means that is the developmental delay. Child performance in one or more domains is low or below the average or behind what we are expecting. As you know, indeed, you have done the developmental domains. So if the baby is not or child is not holding the neck up to 3 months of the age, or the child is not sitting with sport up to 9 months of the age, that is the developmental delay. Performance is low in any one domain. Okay, so this developmental delay is again we can call it GDD. G mean global developmental delay. Global developmental delay. Just here we discuss the developmental delay when child performance in one or more domains. That domain can be social, domain can be gross motor, fine motor, learning, hearing, visual, any is low or below the average or behind what we are expecting. That is the developmental delay. Then what is the global developmental delay? If the developmental delay involves two or more domains, here is the only one domain. That one domain can be gross motor, fine motor. If the developmental delay involves two or more domains, okay, that is the global developmental delay. So here two or more than two domains are involved. Clear? That is the global developmental delay. So what is the first developmental disorders? Is the developmental delay. Developmental delay mean child performance in one or more domain is the low or below the average or behind what we are expecting. It means at the third month of age, we are expecting baby can hold neck, but and at the age of the 6 month, mostly we are expecting that child can sit with sport. Okay, but if up to the age of 9 month, child cannot sit with sport, that is the developmental delay. If the developmental delay involves two or more than two domains, that is the GDD, global developmental delay. It means whether baby cannot sit and baby cannot hold the neck. Both are the gross motor. It means other is the fine motor. So two domains are involved. Maybe one is the gross motor and other is the fine motor are involved. That is the global developmental delay. So next one is the developmental dissociation. It means dissociates. One thing is not associating with other is the dissociation. It means baby is learning one thing very good but not learning other thing. Baby is learning how to walk, baby is learning how to stand. These two things baby is learning very good, but baby is not learning how to speak. That is the dissociation. Baby is learning two things very good. Maybe baby is learning walking, baby is learning standing very good. It means grass motors are good, but language baby is not learning how to speak, not learning how to speak. So it means baby is learning how to walk or walking and standing. Baby is learning good about walking and standing, but baby is not learning about how to speak. So it is dissociation. One domain is dissociated with other domain. All the domains are in sequence. First hold the neck, then sit, stand, walk, and speak. Okay, but when walking is good, standing is good, then walking is good, but not speaking. It means there is a dissociation between one domain to the other domain. Walking and standing is the grass motor, and speaking is the language. So one domain is dissociated from the other domain. That is the developmental dissociation. So how will you define it? It means substantial difference in the rate of development between two or more domains. So very simple is this substantial difference in rate of development in two domains. Very simple diagram definition. It means there is a difference. Where is the difference is present? Rate of development. Rate mean achieving power. So it means learning about walking is good. Learning about standing is good. But learning about speaking is not good. So rate of development of gross motor is good, but rate of development of the speaking or language domain is not good. So there is a substantial difference in one and other domain. So that is the dissociation. Clear? Next one is the developmental deviancy. Deviancy means change in sequence. Change in sequence. What does it mean, change in sequence? You know, development is a sequential process. Development will go in a sequence. What is the sequence? Child first hold the neck, then child will sit, child will crawl, child will stand, child will walk, child will speak, child will this is the sequential processes. So development is a sequential process. Okay, so if this sequential process is different, developmental milestones occur out of sequence. So change in the sequence means when the milestone, especially which one milestone, developmental milestones occur out of sequence. What is the out of sequence? Out of sequence means if crawling comes before sitting. So here is the crawling first and then sitting. If the baby crawls first and then sit, so that is the out of sequence. Actually sitting should be first and then crawling. This is the normal sequence. Now in the normal developmental sequence is that the child will sit first and then crawl. This is the normal. Okay, but in the developmental deviancy, maybe crawling is first and then sitting. So this is the developmental deviancy. Speaking first, then walking. Okay, so this is the developmental deviancy. So these are all disorders: developmental delay, developmental dissociation, and developmental deviancy. Clear? Next one. So what are the alarming signs or the upper limit? So next one is the upper limit. Other thing of the upper limit is the red flags. Other name is the alarming signs for developmental disorders. For developmental disorders. So it means what is the upper limit? It means I tell you one example. Maybe the normal time, here is the time, normal time for the baby to sit with sport. Sit with sport. So normally baby, that is the gross motor. So normally a child can sit with sport up to the age of 6 months. This is the normal time. So baby or child can sit with sport up to the age of 6 months. But if you say the such same baby, same child, if is not sitting with sport up to the 7 month, up to the age of 7 months, baby or child is not sitting. So what do you call? This is the developmental delay or developmental disorders? Not. It means 1 month or up to the 2 months more than normal. Still, it is not a developmental disorders. So, what is the upper limit when you will call it developmental disorders? I gave you. Normally, a child can sit with sport up to the age of 6 months. This is the normal duration or normal gross motor period for sitting. Okay, so normally a child can sit with sport up to the 6 months of the age. But if same child cannot sit with sport up to the 7 month, what you call it? You will call it this is a developmental disorder? No. Same baby cannot sit with sport up to the age of 8 months. Still, it is not a developmental disorders. So you will make a upper age. Upper age means you will make a cut off value. It means you will make a flag, red flag. This is the red flag. When the age of the baby crosses that upper age, if the age of the baby crosses that cutoff value and still that child cannot achieve one specific domain. So in this case, the child can sit with sport up to 6 months, it is normal, but same child cannot sit with sport up to 9 months. So this 9 month is a upper age. Then you call it is a developmental disorders. So this is the alarming sign. When your child cannot sit with sport up to the age of 9 months, then you will think there is a gross motor developmental disorders. It means 9 month, 10 month. So this is the upper age are the red flags. Then you should become worried why baby has crossed his normal age, but still that child is not showing specific milestones. So I gave you the specific ages and their mile upper ages. So first let's discuss the gross motor. Gross motor. Holding neck, sitting, standing, walking, and so on. So what are the upper age? For the gross motor, I say sitting. Start with the sitting. Start with sitting with the sport. Standing with support. Walking with sport. Walking with sport. So these are the all are the gross motors. Okay, so normally baby or child sit with sport up to 6 months, stand with sport up to the 9 months. You have done it. So when the age of the baby is 9 months, then standing milestone will be achieved. Walking with sport can achieved up to the age of 12 months. So these are the normal. But what is the upper? What is the upper age? When you call it are the alarming sign. So upper age, when the baby cannot sit with the sport up to 9 months, then you should become worried. Okay, so this is the upper age. Upper age are the uh, red flags when the baby cannot sit with the sport and age of the baby is 9 months. So 9 months child is not sitting with the sport. It means this is a developmental delay, especially gross motor developmental delay. So normally child stand with sport at the age of 9 months. When the child is not standing with this sport up to the age of 12 months, that is the alarming sign. Maybe this is a developmental disorders. Normally baby walk with the sport up to the age of 12 months, but if a child don't walk with the sport up to the age of 15 months, so this 15 month is a red or upper age. So if a child cannot walk with the sport at the age of 15 months, 16 months, 17 months, so these are the cut-off values when you will call it, this is the developmental disorder. So for the developmental disorders, we have made cut-off values. Hassan, Azayaz, Ammar bin Yasir, Andama, Azan, Iman, Blessing, Durayaman, Elizabeth, Ella. These are the upper ages, are the red features or red flags or alarming signs are for the fine motor. Same upper ages for the social, for the language. So next one is the for fine motor. So what are the upper age? Okay, Imran is with you, Habibi. Okay, so here is the fine motor. Something catching with hand. Okay, or the hand movement. So so first one is the pincer grab, pincer grasp. Now you will tell me when, what is the normal age when the child will show the red flags, positive and negative indicators. Yes. Okay, pincer grasp, scribbling, pincer grasp and scribbling. Okay, so pincer grasp, it will appear normally at the age of 9 months. Okay, 9 months. It appears at the age of 15 months. This is the normal age when these will appear. But what is the upper age? Upper age is the 12 months. Okay, so mature pincer grabs will be up to the age of 12 months, and the mature scribbling will be obtained up to the age of 24 months. When you check, you feel the baby has no pincer grasp or the mature pincer grasp up to the age of 12 months, it means you can think there could be a developmental disorders, or there is a no scribbling up to the age of 24 months, then you can think there is a developmental disorders. So same is for the social and same is for the language. So our main theme is the how to change, how to check the upper age, upper cutoff value. After that you can call it, very simple example is that here is your blood pressure. You call it 120 by 80 or 80 by 120. So every person don't have this 120 by 80, it is average. So this is the cutoff value. When the blood pressure increases, systolic or diastolic increases, then you call it hypertension, high blood pressure. So same as here, these ages are the cutoff. When specific milestone like pincer grasp is not achieved at the age of 12 months, It means there is a fine motor developmental delay. Clear? So next one, what are the etiologies? So social and the language, you can check it from the book. So it is written, no need to bother again and again. So what are the causes? Causes of the developmental delay are the etiologies or risk factors of the developmental delay. So first one, there could be a chromosomal abnormalities. Chromosomal abnormalities. I tell you, what are the first one chromosomal abnormality? Maybe there could be a trisomy 13, trisomy 18, trisomy 21. So these are the chromosomal abnormalities. So what is the trisomal 13? What is the syndrome when there is a trisomy 13? What is the name of the syndrome? We have discussed it. When there is a trisomy 13, it means chromosome number 13 are not a double, they are triple. What is the name of the syndrome due to trisomy 13? Can you tell me the name of the syndrome due to? Yeah, Patau syndrome. Okay, Patau syndrome. Okay, what is the name of the syndrome due to the trisomy 18?
Edward syndrome.
Edward syndrome. Good. Edward syndrome. So what is the syndrome due to the trisomy 21? Down syndrome. Down syndrome. So this due to the Down syndrome, Edward syndrome, and Patau syndrome, they are causes of the developmental abnormalities, and these are the chromosomal defects. So next one cause is the developmental brain abnormalities. What is that? Developmental brain abnormalities. You know, these are the motor milestones. So all the motor milestones are under the control of brain. When brain is not properly mature, how will you achieve the motor milestones? So I gave you the example of there is a lissencephaly. Okay, lissencephaly, and other is the, okay, I should give the permission to the students. Okay. So one is this one is the one chromosomal are the brain abnormalities, and other one brain abnormality is the myelomeningocele. Myelomeningocele. Okay. So listen, you know, in the lissencephaly or cephaly, whatever you can study, Lissencephaly, lissencephaly. So you know there are the gyri and sulcus on your brain. You know these are deep areas, and there are some upper areas in this hemisphere, right hemisphere, left hemisphere, and there are sulcus or gyri in the normal brain. But there is a brain abnormality, developmental brain abnormalities. So these are not present, and then brain appears smooth. There is no sulcus, no gyri. You know, white outer side the brain is a gray matter, inside is the white matter, and these are the some protrusions and deeper areas. So these are called the sulcus or gyres. They are not present. When sulcus or gyres are not present and brain appears smooth, that is the lissencephaly. That is the developmental brain abnormality. So no proper sulci and gyri, no proper function or proper part of the brain is functional, no proper motor movement or motor function. Next one is the myelomeningocele. So what is the myelomeningocele? It is a defect of the severe kind of the spina bifida. Spina bifida. In this severe kind of the spina bifida, spinal cord, here is the spinal cord will come out along with the spinal cord. Here is the spinal cord. Protrusion from the spinal cord where the meninges will come inside this area, and there is a fluid filled cyst with the meninges, myelo and meninges and seal. So it is making a fluid cyst lesion, fluid filled lesion with the meninges. Okay, so that is the severe form of the spina bifida. So this is the other cause, that is the developmental brain abnormalities. Next one, third cause is the genetic defects. When there is some genetic defects that can lead to the developmental disorders. Third one is the genetic defects. So which kind of thing? I give you some examples like the fragile X syndrome. So this is the genetic defect, fragile X syndrome, Prader-Willi syndrome, Prader-Willi syndrome, Rett syndrome. So these are the genetic defects. Okay, don't worry. So there are some genetic defect, fragile X syndrome, Prader-Willi syndrome, and the Rett syndrome. Actually, what happens into the fragile X syndrome? In the fragile X syndrome, there is a mental disability and IQ level is less than 55. With mental disability and IQ level will be less than 55. Mental retardation, we call it mental disability, and the IQ level of the child will be less, so less learning attitude. And in the Prader-Willi syndrome, weak muscles, poor feeding, and on the chromosome number 5, there are some genes are specific genes are missing, and chromosome number 5 genes are missing, are defective. So there will be a poor muscle and poor feeding. So when the poor muscle and poor feeding, so these are the symptoms of the malnutrition. They can lead to the abnormal motor function. Third one, fourth one features are the causes. Okay, so fourth one causes are the, so genetic defects are mostly untreatable, mostly genetic defects. But nowadays, there is a gene therapy is present, so you can treat it. But most of the time, you have to live with it. Okay, next one is the perinatal factors. Some are the perinatal factors. Or other etiology is the perinatal. What are the perinatal factors? Most common perinatal factor is the perinatal asphyxia. Perinatal asphyxia. So we have studied in the perinatal asphyxia, there could be a HIE, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. So when there is a HIE, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, so it will lead to the abnormal brain development. Perinatal factors is the most common perinatal factor is the asphyxia. It can lead to HIE, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, and that will lead to the brain abnormal functioning. Fifth cause is the postnatal, after the birth. What are the postnatal factors after the birth? What are the causes that can lead to the developmental disorders. So when there's a trauma to brain, when the after the birth of the baby falls down and the stuck with the ground. So trauma to the brains. When there are special infections after the birth, like the meningitis, encephalitis, okay, and hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism. So brain trauma, infections, meningitis or encephalitis or meningoencephalitis, and other is the hypothyroidism. Those are the postnatal factors. The next one is the metabolic disorders. Some metabolic disorders. We will discuss these metabolic disorders in our detail in the next chapter. So that is the what are the inborn metabolic disorders or inborn errors of the metabolisms. So name is only here is sufficient. That is the maple syrup urine disease. Maple syrup urine disease. So it is actually the organic acidemia. What is that? Maple syrup urine disease. It is an organic aciduria in which the branched chain amino acids are unable to break down. There is no proper metabolism of the branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and the valine. So then the urine will give the smell of the maple syrup. Okay, these are the some metabolic disorders. Next one, last one factor is the congenital infections. Congenital infections. It means baby has born with infection. So let's proceed our main discussion. So as you know, we are discussing the disorders of the development. So here we'll discuss what are the development assessment. How will you assess the development? So developmental assessment. Developmental assessment. So development is assessed by the developmental quotient. Developmental quotient. Q, this one. So that the developmental assessment is detected or the assessed by developmental quotient. So that is the DQ, developmental quotient. So DQ is equal to, here is the DQ, developmental quotient. Formula for the developmental quotient is DQ is equal to developmental age, developmental age upon chronological age, chronological age multiplied by 100. Okay, so what is the developmental age? It means at what age the baby can achieve any milestone. Okay, so maybe the if the developmental age is the baby is achieving the or sitting with sport, sitting with sport. So baby is sitting with sport. It means baby is achieving one milestone, and that milestone is sitting with sport or the gross motor. So sitting with sport can normally achieve at the age of 6 months. So here the developmental age is the 6 months. And what is the chronological age? Age from date of birth, and then multiply it. So developmental age upon chronological age multiplied by 100, it will come into the percentage, and that is a ratio, no unit. So that is the QD is DQ is used for the assessment of the development. A development is assessed by the developmental quotient. So there are the different tests for the developmental assessment. So what are the different tests for the developmental assessment? Two type of the tests are used for the developmental assessment. One is the definitive test. Definitive test mean confirmatory, and other is the screening test. Definitive test and screening test. So definitive mean confirmatory. That will confirm whether there is a developmental disorder is present or not present. So let's discuss one by one. What is the first confirmatory test? Is the Bayley scale for the infant development. Bayley scale, AYLEY. Bayley scale for infant development. Its version is 2, version second. So these all the tests are available in the form of chart, or in the form of the graphics or the tables or PDF. So just you have to remember the names of this one. First one is the Bayley scale for the infant development version 2. Second definitive test is the Stanford Binet intelligence test. Stanford Binet intelligence test. So third one is the Vinland adaptive behavior scale. Vinland adaptive behavior scale. And fourth one, Wechsler intelligence scale for children. Wechsler intelligence scale for children. Okay, so Wechsler intelligence scale for children, these are the four are the definitive test or the confirmatory test. Bayley scale for the infant development, Stanford Binet intelligence test, Vinland adaptive behavior scale, and the Wechsler intelligence test for so screening tests are the Patak-Brodha screening test. So here is the Brodha BARODA Brodha screening test. Brodha screening test. BARODA Brodha screening test. So first one is the Brodha screening test. Second one is the age and stages questionnaire. Age stages questionnaire. Third one, revised Denver developmental screening test. Revised Denver developmental screening test. Developmental. These are available in the book. Okay. And fourth one is the Trivandrum. Trivandrum screening test or the developmental screening test. So actually, what is the Trivandrum? TRIVANDRUM. Trivandrum screening test. So Trivandrum is the capital Kerala. So on that name, it is the Trivandrum development screening test. So these are the screening test, Baroda screening test, age stage questionnaire, revised Denver Developmental Screening Test, and Trivandrum Screening Test. So these are the tests that are done for the assessment of the development. Okay, next one. Next one is the what are the tests for the intellectual disability? ID. Older name of the ID is the mental retardation. MR, mental retardation. Actually, it is the intellectual disability. Intellectual disability. Nowadays, we use the word that is the intellectual disability rather than mental retardation. That is the old name. MR stands for mental retardation. So for the intellectual ability or intellectual disability, so we use the IQ, word IQ. IQ is checked. When you want to check whether the person is intelligent or not intelligent, then you will check the IQ. IQ means intelligent quotient. I stand for intelligent quotient. IQ. So what is the normal IQ level for the normal person? So normal IQ is IQ normal for the normal person is it is about 7 9 sorry not 70 90 to 110. 90 to 110 is the normal IQ for the normal person. The borderline, it means, or the cutoff, or the borderline IQ is the 70 to 89. 70 to 89 is the borderline IQ, and normal person, normal IQ is the 90 to 1 IQ level for the intelligence quotient. So how will you check what is the formula for the IQ? How will you check the IQ level? So IQ is checked by mental age upon chronological age, and multiplied by 100. By this formula, you can check the IQ. IQ is checked by the mental age upon chronological age multiplied by 100. So this is the IQ formula. So what are the degree and what is their IQ level? So here is the when the IQ level is less, what you call it, and what is their IQ level. So normally we have told you for the normal person IQ is about 90 to 110 and borderline IQ is 70 to 89. So when there is a mild intellectual disability, for mild intellectual disability mild IQ will be below the borderline. So IQ is the 51 to 70. I told you here is the borderline for the IQ is the 70 to 89. So for the mental disability, that mental disability or the intellectual disability is the mild, so it will be in the range of 51 to 70. So next one, when there is a moderate intellectual disability, then IQ will change from 36 to 50, and severe intellectual disability IQ will again decrease. It will become 21 to 35, and fourth one is the profound. Profound intellectual disability, it will become 0 to 20. 0 to 20, same for the idiots. Idiots. So idiot live in this IQ level. That is the 0 to 20 IQ level is for the idiots. So these are the different developmental disorders, different developmental disorder assessment, IQ levels, and so on. So here we have completed our normal development, normal developmental domains, and the abnormalities of the disorders. So move on to the next one. So that is the behavioral disorders. Behavior, behavioral disorders. What are the disorders of the behavior of the child? So behavioral disorders. First one is the nocturnal enuresis. Most of the time, male or the female child, they will pee on the bed at the night time. So that is the nocturnal enuresis. Okay, enuresis, enuresis, nocturnal enuresis. Nocturnal enuresis means dry at night at the age of 3 years. When your age of the child is 3 years, child dry at night. Okay, so actually, I tell you what is the normal age. Normal age is the 3 year child. So when the age becomes 3 years, that child should not pee on the bed. If same child whose age is 3 years and that child has not attained urinary continence, this child has not attained urinary continence. It means urinary bladder or urethra or urethral sphincter is not in his control or her control. That child will pee or dry at night on bed. Nocturnal mean night time, enuresis mean urine pass. So if at the age of 3 years the child don't attain urinary continence, that child if passes the urine at bed is known as nocturnal enuresis. So involuntarily passage of the urine at night beyond the age of 5 years. Very simple definition is the involuntary involuntary urine passage at night. Nocturnal is the night. So involuntary passage of urine or urine passage at night beyond the age of 5 years of age. It means when the age is more than 5 years, actually I have told you at the 3 years of the age, the child attain the urinary continence. So urinary bladder, urethral sphincters are in the control of the child. But sometimes it is not in the control of the child or they not voluntarily controlled. So then there will be an involuntary passage of the urine at night beyond the age of 5 years, that is known as nocturnal enuresis. That is the behavioral defect, it is not a structural or the developmental defect or disorders. So its epidemiology is very simple. So according to the epidemiology of the nocturnal enuresis, most commonly it is 60% occurs in boys. And also there could be a family history in the family, maybe father or mother was the affected of this behavioral disorder, then it could be present in the 50% cases. So when the family history is positive, then 50% of the cases there could be a chance of the nocturnal enuresis. And next one, if one parent is involved, one parent, maybe father or the mother is involved, then the chances of the nocturnal enuresis is the 44%. If the both parents are involved, mother and the father both have the previous history of the nocturnal enuresis, then the chances of the nocturnal enuresis for that child is 77%. Chances will increase when the both parents are involved. Both parents have the history of the nocturnal enuresis, then its chances of the nocturnal enuresis will increase from 44 to 77%. So types, there are the two types, primary and the secondary. Okay, so here are the types of the nocturnal enuresis. So there are two types, primary nocturnal enuresis and secondary nocturnal enuresis. So what is the primary nocturnal enuresis mean? They never attain the urinary continence at night. So this is more common or most common. So patient never attains, never gain, never has the control urinary continence. Patient or the child never attain urinary continence. It means all the time there is a involuntary passage of the urine at night, all the time. That is the primary and most common. Secondary, maybe first patient will attain or child will attain the urinary continence for months, for months, and then again start or restart nocturnal enuresis. So it is the secondary. First, child will attain the urinary continence. It means control on the urine passage for the months. Then there is any pathology that will develop, and that pathology can lead to the restart the nocturnal enuresis. That is the secondary nocturnal enuresis, and that is less common. Okay. So how will you manage it? How will you manage the nocturnal enuresis? You know, it is a behavioral disorder. So first you will get the history. You know what is the history? In the history you will ask the age. So you call it, if age should be more than 3 years, because at the age of 3 years child will attain the urinary continence. If the age is less than 3 years, then you can say it is not a nocturnal enuresis, because the child less than the age of the 3 years cannot attain urinary continence. So when the age is more than 3 years, and along with the age, you will ask the family history in the parents, both parents were involved or the one of them was involved, then that child can have the nocturnal enuresis. Okay, and then after taking the history you will do some examination. What are the examination? You will check the some underlying pathology. Maybe if there is some disease, what are the underlying pathology? You will check, maybe patient or the child is going to have the diabetes mellitus. When any patient that have the diabetes mellitus cannot attain the urinary continence, there is a polyuria, polyphagia and polydipsia. So you will check the examination, you will get the examination and check it out, rule it out the diabetes mellitus. So history examination, after that you will go with the management or the treatment. So it is a behavioral disorders. So every behavioral disorders need the behavioral therapy. So first line of the treatment, you will change the diet and lifestyle. Change diet and lifestyle plus motivational therapy, not a motivational speech. Keep in mind, it is a child. That will gain nothing if you do the motivational speech. Okay. So what is the change in diet and lifestyle? So you will recommend them, don't take too much fluid at the time of the evening or at night. Okay, take the dinner earlier and restrict the intake of the more fluids after dinner. Restrict the intake of the caffeine, sugar substance. Okay, so dinner should be earlier. No fluid intake, especially at night. Okay, so no fluid after the dinner. Okay, that is the change the life diet. No sugary substance. Maybe you are assuming for the sugar. So no sugary substances. Early dinner, no fluid after dinner. Take the less fluid at night, but most of the fluid should be taken at the daytime. So what is the motivational therapy? Motivational therapy means motivate that child, motivate that boy or the girl or child. How you will motivate? You will get a diary, and on that diary, if on Monday baby don't have the nocturnal enuresis, put a star. Tuesday, no enuresis, put a star. Thursday, there is a no nocturnal enuresis, put a star. When there is a consecutive multiple stars, consecutive no nocturnal enuresis, then give a gift to the child, and the child will motivate that if that child is not going to do again and again nocturnal enuresis, he or she will get more gifts. So that is the motivational therapy, not a motivational speech. So sit in front of the child and speak, giving a motivational speech that you will do in your future, you will become a that blah blah blah. Next one is the second line. Second line management. So in the second line management, there are some bed alarm techniques. Bed alarm techniques. So there are some sensors on the bed. So here is the bed. On that bed there are some sensors. So when these sensors feel there is some wet thing, or the when the baby will especially have the nocturnal enuresis, so the bed will become wet. So these sensor will give the alarm, and then parents will walk up, or they woke up, and they will come to the baby and get up and go for the washroom. So this is very tough technique, second line of the treatment. And lastly, third line of the management, other than the bed alarm techniques, so you can use some drugs, and but these drugs are not used for the permanent treatment. These are used for the referred for the refractory cases or the refractory cases. Drugs are used for the refractory cases. Refractory cases mean for special cases, when you are going for outing, you are going for the trip, and so on. So refractory cases are the short term management. Okay, drugs. Which one drugs that can be used for the short term management, especially oral desmopressin. Oral desmopressin can be used. So which one oral desmopressins can be used? Imipramine. Imipramine. This can be given orally for the short period of time, not for permanent use. And oxybutynin. Oxybutynin. So these drugs can be recommended for the refractory cases, mean short-term management. So for the short-term management, you can give the imipramine and the oxybutynin for the nocturnal enuresis. And mostly when you give the first second line treatment and the third line treatment combine, it means concomitant use of the bed alarm techniques, concomitant use of bed alarm techniques and the refractory cases, or sorry, drugs combined, you use it, then the relapse will be less. Again, regaining of the nocturnal enuresis will be less. Okay, so bed alarm techniques and drugs, they have the less relapse. Okay, next one is the, but you have studied there is no proper treatment for the nocturnal enuresis because it is a psychological or the behavioral disorders. Next one, behavioral disorder is the pica. You know, some of this child eat, they eat the mud, they eat clay, okay, they eat charcoal, whatever, stone, lick the stone, not eat them, lick the stone. So eating mud, eating clay, charcoal, licking the stones, licking the back of the shoes where the clay is present, so that is the pica, that is the behavioral disorder. Okay, so actually pica is the persistent eating of non-nutritive or non-food substances over a period of at least 1 month. 1 month. 1 month. So eating non-nutritive, eating non-nutritive. It means there is no nutrition, non-food substances. So this mud is non-nutritive, it has no nutrition. Clay has no nutrition and it is not a food. Eating non-nutritive, non-food substances for the period of 1 month, especially 1 month is the cutoff. It means, it does not mean when you tomorrow you notice that baby or child is eating clay, eating mud, eating charcoal, and you call it that baby has the behavioral disorder, the pica. No, specifically that child should eat it for the period of 1 month. 1 month is the cutoff. So eating mud, clay, charcoal, stone, licking the back of the shoes, so that is the non-food substances, and eating non-nutritive for the period of 1 month, that is the pica. Okay, it is more common in those childs who have the mental disability. Okay, and you can treat it just only with the treatment is just only behavior therapy. Behavioral therapy. Just only communicate that babies, okay, avoid the approach of that child from these substances. So there is no specific treatment, but keep in mind, eating mud, clay, charcoal, stone can put the baby anemic, because when that baby will eat these things too much, so that baby will not take food or not feed properly. So baby will not feed properly, baby can go into the anemia or baby will become anemic. Okay, just you can treat the anemia, not treat these conditions. Okay, next, third behavioral condition is the thumb sucking. Thumb sucking, most of the time baby sucks the thumbs. So it is the thumb sucking is the self-soothing behavior. soothing behavior. When the any child that will suck the thumb will feel relaxed. Thumb soothing, self soothing means that baby will feel relaxed after thumb sucking. So it is a self-soothing behavior. The child will enjoy it, relax, and also comfortable. So it is most commonly seen in the 25% of the child of 2 years. So the age is 2 years. Out these 2 year child, 25% of the child have the thumb sucking. 2 year child or children with the age of the 2 years, out 25% of them have the thumb sucking. Okay, so this thumb sucking, when the age increases, then nail will become more and more mature, and then this will become dry, all the time wet. So there are some chances for the fungal growth and bacterial growth in the nail. It can lead to the paronychia. So we have discussed this paronychia in detail in our dermatology. So paronychia can be associated with the thumb sucking. Okay, so here the treatment is nothing, just a treatment is the behavioral therapy. Okay, so in our setting, in the setting of Pakistan, we use the some type of the gel on the thumb. When the baby will take that gel, it has the different sweet smells or the bitter taste, so that baby will not thumb not show the again thumb sucking. So these, there are different other are very simple, so you know about it. So next one is the teeth grinding. You know, baby grinds the teeth, especially that baby will grind the teeth at the age of 1 to 5 years. So especially at the daytime when the baby has the anxiety, so at the night baby will grind the teeth, and we call it the bruxism. Bruxism, bruxism, teeth grinding. Bruxism. Other behavioral disorders is the breath holding spells. So when the baby will cry, so bruxism is the teeth grinding. Fifth one is the breath holding spells. So you know baby will cry, and when that baby will cry, after they cry, baby will stop the breathing for some time. So when the baby will stop the breathing for some time, color of the baby will become pale. Okay, so maybe the color of the baby can become blue. So there are the pale or the blue, that is two types. One is the blue and other is the pale color breath holding spells. So what will happen when there is a pale color? It is due to the vagal reflex. Okay, so bradycardia, what will happen here? Bradycardia, you know that bradycardia is due to the vagal reflex inhibition. You know, vagal reflex will become active, it will secrete more and more acetylcholine, and it will be a heart will remain in the most of the diastolic conditions. You know it, what is the vagus nerve? The vagus nerve is controlling the heart activity. Vagus nerve is secreting the acetylcholine, so heart will remain in the diastolic conditions. When heart will remain in diastolic condition, there is no proper blood flowing through the systemic circulation, and the color will become pale. When the color is the blue in the breath holding spells, especially that is the cyanotic, that is due to the prolonged expiration. Prolonged expiration. When there is a prolonged expiration, most of the time oxygen deficiency, that oxygen deficiency will lead to the apnea, intrapulmonary shunting of the blood will again rotate inside the lungs. So but there is no proper ventilation, no proper perfusion, so color of the arterial blood will turn into the bluish in color, and baby will appear blue. It is not a blue syndrome. Blue syndrome is totally different from this. Blue are the cyanotic breath holding spells. Keep in mind, breath holding spell is two type. One is the pale, and other is the blue or cyanotic. And etiologies of both are the different. Here the bradycardia reflex control, and blue color is due to the prolonged expiration. Okay, so here it is no treatment, so just you will go with the behavioral therapy. So here I'm